All right, folks, today is Wednesday, March 4th, 2020, the day after Super Tuesday. As I called it, Mike Bloomberg drops out of the race. Here, Elizabeth Warren, she is determining what she is going to do next. Oh, yeah, folks, it is going to be a jam-packed show for us discussing exactly what took place last night and now where do they move forward. Senator Bernie Sanders, he spoke today as well. What is he going to do? Folks, on this show, we'll talk to Senator Doug Jones, who was, of course, Democratic nominee, won last night in Alabama. And also, Shaun King, really? You want to try to call out Rachel Maddow? And why you going to block me, Shaun? That's a punk-ass move, dog. I'm going to break it all down. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's Uncle Roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin!
Big night for Joe Biden all across Super Tuesday, winning a significant number of states. Senator Bernie Sanders, people thought he was going to crush it on Super Tuesday. That didn't happen. It's amazing how fast fortunes change. Mike Bloomberg today dropped out of the presidential race, endorsing Joe Biden. But last night, one of the states Joe Biden won was Alabama, where, of course, my next guest, he, of course, also won the Democratic nomination. He is waiting to figure out who he's going to be against. Will it be former Senator Jeff Sessions? Will it be former coach Tommy Tuberville? Joining us right now is Senator Doug Jones. Senator, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Roland. Thanks for having me today.
All right, so you don't know who you're going to run against. You've got crazy and really crazy. Those are the two choices, Tuberville and Jeff Sessions. What do you make of what's happening on the Republican side?
You know, it has been really sad to watch, to be honest with you, to see how low the Republican Party in Alabama has gone with this race. I mean, you've got Sessions, who is such a divisive character. He's divisive in Alabama, obviously, 20 years as a senator and couldn't get but a little over 30% of the vote. And then you got Coach Tuberville, who is just, his views have gotten to be so extreme. It's just unbelievable. So, you know, we're feeling really good about where we are. We're doing all the things that we said that we would do, and you and I have talked about before, talking about the kitchen table issues and things that matter to all people in Alabama. That's our whole mantra, is one Alabama. So we feel really, really good.
You are going to have a tough re-election. The bottom line is you won the special election. You're running against Judge Roy Moore. Last night, he placed fourth in that primary. He was, you know, this boogeyman folks were looking at. But one of the issues that we talked about when I was there in December for our Black Journalists Board meeting when you and I had lunch, you got 900,000 people who are unregistered in Alabama, 500,000 African-American. What is being done on the ground to get those folks registered before the November election?
You know, there's a lot of things that are happening right now. We've got some folks that are starting to do that. The most significant thing that we've had to develop right now is that we've finally got a Democratic Party in Alabama. We have, for so long, have just kind of wandered in the wilderness without a party to lead us and to do those kind of things. But now we have a real viable Democratic Party. We've put young people in there. We've got the first African-American chair, Chris England, that is in there, and we're beginning to raise money for that party to put that infrastructure in place. So we've got the party infrastructure that's doing really good. People on the ground in every county is doing well. We've got folks looking at making sure that we have things that are happening. You know, Stacey Abrams in Fair Fight is going to be in Alabama. There are any number of groups that are both registering, re-registering, because that's something else we've got to do because of voter purging, and trying to get people engaged. Getting folks engaged is something that we're going to be focused on in the next 6 or 8 months, right up until November.
I was there when I was there, and even since then, I've talked to different people down in Alabama. You got some folks down there who are mad at you, this whole deal with Joe Reed. Have y'all resolved that? Because, again, I've heard from black folks who say, you know, oh, my goodness, you know, these things shouldn't be happening. But the bottom line is this here. This is about winning. It's about winning statewide. And Alabama, in many ways, is like my native Texas, where Republicans control all of the statewide offices. At the end of the day, you got to put together some kind of sensible coalition to get over the top.
Well, look, I have had nothing but good things to say about Dr. Reed and all the things he has done for the folks in Alabama. But the fact is, we needed a change in leadership. And I think that change was evident yesterday when, Joe Biden was able to come in there with only one endorsement from one group and win over 62% of the total vote in Alabama. So, there's a lot of things that have been changed. But I think people are going to start rallying around now the party. We've got everything out of the way. Folks are excited about this Democratic Party. And I think if you look at what happened yesterday in Alabama, even though Dr. Reed and his group did not endorse Joe Biden, they endorsed Mike Bloomberg. The fact is there was a lot of excitement among the ADC folks that he represents, that Dr. Reed represents. There was a lot of excitement in the African-American community in general because, it's just like Jim Clyburn said in South Carolina. We know Joe in Alabama. He knows us. He speaks to us. He listens to us. And so that kind of transcends that. And I think after yesterday's vote, I think everybody's going to see that we've got some really major opportunities. We had 50,000 more people voting in our primary this year than they did in 2016. And that's a good sign, too. There's a lot of excitement, Roland. I think we're going to all come together and get ready for November.
I do have to ask you about the developments. Michael Bloomberg dropping out of the race, Joe Biden solidifying support. Elizabeth Warren is now deciding what she wants to do. I suspect by Thursday or Friday, she's going to drop out. You can't come in third place in Massachusetts, where you're a senator. You can't come in fourth place in Oklahoma, where you grew up, and then fourth place in Texas, where you went to college, and somehow have a plausible path. And so going forward, you're likely going to have Biden versus Sanders. What do you see happening there? Can Sanders grow his base? And can Biden run a much more structured, focused, energetic campaign?
Yeah, look, I think that Senator Sanders has had trouble growing that base. I think we're seeing that in the numbers now where he didn't even perform as well in Vermont as he did in 2016. His supporters are very excited. They are loyal to him. But I think the fact of the matter is what you saw happen yesterday was Joe beginning to get the wind at his back, to solidify the vote. Think about this. It was a really amazing night when you can carry both Alabama and Texas and Tennessee, as well as the state of Massachusetts and Minnesota. That shows you the strength of a Biden coalition, a diverse strength that he's got across the country. I believe he's going to do really well in the upcoming primaries. I think he's going to do real well in Florida. I think he'll do well in Michigan. Obviously, this is not over with yet, and I'm not saying that at all. But I think if I'm reading the tea leaves, I think that Joe Biden is going to be the nominee. I've said that all along, and I still believe it. And I think he'll end up being the president of the United States as well. All
right, Senator Doug Jones of Alabama, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Look forward to having you back on Roland Unfiltered.
Thank you, buddy. Always good to see you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. As Senator Jones said, folks, last night Joe Biden won Alabama, Arkansas, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia. Senator Bernie Sanders won California, Colorado, Utah, and Vermont. But when we say who won, folks, it also is different because if you get more than 15% of the vote statewide, you qualify for delegates. A lot of people were saying that Senator Bernie Sanders was going to be so far ahead that he was likely going to get the nomination after Super Tuesday. This is the delegate count as of right now. 566 for Biden, 501 for Sanders, and 61 for Elizabeth Warren. Let's break this down with our panel. Joseph Williams, he's a senior editor of U.S. News and World Report. We also have Dr. Wilmer Leon, host of Inside the Issues, and A. Scott Bolden, former chair, National Bar Association Political Action Committee. Joseph, I want to start with you. Again, when you begin to break down what happened, Joe Biden what happened in South Carolina just vaulted him ahead, opened the floodgates for endorsements. He won in places where he didn't even go. Okay, he was barely in Minnesota and Maine and won. Sanders went to Maine and Minnesota, had rallies, really thought he was going to win there. That says a whole lot about what the Democratic Party on Super Tuesday, how they felt about Biden versus a Sanders, for Biden to win in two places that people absolutely swore Sanders was going to win. In fact, you throw in Massachusetts. Sanders was leading in the polls in Massachusetts. He was 1, Warren was 2, Biden was 3. It flips. Biden is 1, Sanders 2, Warren is 3.
That's right. Well, it was just an incredible night for Joe Biden. And once again, the trigger was South Carolina and the African-American vote. You look at the exit polls, black people went for Joe Biden almost overwhelmingly. It was very hard to see how the numbers were breaking for Bernie Sanders with the traditional black vote. And we're talking about voters who are in the older demographics, let's say 30 and above. 30 and younger, Sanders did okay, but those aren't the people who tend to vote more frequently. So I think the black vote really catapulted him. He's depending on that. It was a wave. And inside the black belt, including Texas, where he was not projected to do very well, and places where he didn't even campaign. He had no field office in Texas. He had no field office in Alabama or practically anywhere because he was running on fumes, basically. So it was a really big night. And African Americans are the engine that is propelling his campaign, and I think you'll see that going forward.
But, Wilma, when you begin to also break this thing down, if you look at across the board, and that is, you have Joe Biden, who blows Sanders away among African American voters, but he is extremely competitive in the other areas. Even though Sanders leads him when it comes to Latino voters, Biden is picking up a respectable number. You break down Biden picking up white voters, white voters, Latino voters, African-American voters, that's a coalition. When Joseph talked about this whole issue of young voters, Henry, go to my iPad. This is the headline in USA Today. Many young voters sat out Super Tuesday. Senator Sanders makes the argument, I can bring out young people. This is real simple. If you cannot bring out young people in a primary, show me the evidence of you able to bring them out in November.
Well, I think we have a couple factors here. As Joseph was talking about, the age demographic is very important. When you throw in a lot of this discussion, which I think is kind of nonsensical, electability is one thing. And then this anybody but Trump mentality that kind of takes this down into it dilutes the analysis instead of really understanding what your interests are and who can best represent your interests. And what I think we're really seeing play out here is right now is a class struggle, an intra-party class struggle between the Democratic elites and the voting, the basic voting base. That class struggle is being disguised as an ideological struggle between socialism, which Bernie Sanders is not, and capitalism. And so it's all getting lost in the sauce, and people are looking at anybody but Trump and who can win. And in many instances, that electability question is not necessarily a mathematical calculation of who's going to amass the most votes. It has more to do with assaulting the sensibilities of the Democratic elite. And that is really making a mess of the entire conversation.
Does that mean Dems, if I may, does that mean Dems, a better word would be the moderates and conservative members of the Democratic Party that are far outnumber the far left, if you will, and far are more reliable voters as well?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Well, you call them Democratic elites, and
right, so
I call them moderates and conservative Democratic voters.
I call them voters.
No, well,
they're different class.
They're a different class.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I'm talking about those who are actually running the party. The Clintons, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and looking at who they actually represent, particularly on the Wall Street side of the equation, and they're fighting desperately, anybody but Bernie, because they're fighting desperately to protect what they perceive to be their interests. I mean,
But here's the deal, though. I think if you take into account what took place in South Carolina and beyond, what you're seeing from Democratic voters, that ain't the conversation. The debate for them is, can you beat that orange dude? And so here's the piece. I don't have any belief or sense that those voters in South Carolina, 65% black, 35% white, were factoring in, okay, what Hillary or Bill or Obama was saying.
Clyburn said, Joe knows us and we know Joe.
But they were also factoring that in, but they were also factoring in, again, who they think could beat. But here's my point when you talk about like Sanders' whole deal, Scott, he wants to run against the establishment, the elite. Go to my iPad. This was a breakdown in Texas. Sanders keeps making the argument that I can bring out people who don't vote, young people, I can bring out white males, all those things.
Right.
Here's the deal here. Blacks under 30, Sanders got 41%. Biden got 29. That is just a 12-point gap. Let's go to black voters 30 to 44. Biden, 49. Sanders, 27. That's a 22-point gap.
Right.
Now, we go 45 and older, that gap just gets wider and wider and wider.
Right.
The point I'm making is this here, okay? For all the people out there who keep saying Sanders and the revolution, bitching and moaning and tweeting does not equate with voting. And you can say, I mean, I had a dude on Twitter today, and he was like, you know, these boomers, they got 1 foot in the grave, and I said, and 1 foot in your ass at the polls. My deal is, you can keep
And one hand voting.
right. And I'm like, y'all can whine and complain about older voters all day, but they vote.
That's right.
If 40% of the electorate is made up of millennials and Gen Z, you cannot if 40% of the total population in America are millennials and Gen Z, you can't have 13% 1830.
Yeah.
It's math.
So Bernie Sanders' biggest argument at his rallies is it's going to take a revolution. And not only the people in the movement, that we're going to bring other people to the movement, and we're going to slay who's in the White House right now. The problem with that is...
Hold on 1 second. We got to fix your mic. Something's up with your mic. So your mic fell off. Oh, why you fixing that? Yeah, come on, Kappa. Come on. Unbutton your damn coat. Stop trying to be all cute and pull your mic up. Now plug it up.
Send him a video, Roland.
You need me to attach it to?
Send him a video, Roland.
I know. I can see. Here's a Kappa. I know. Now you better go ahead.
My name is A. Scott Bolden, first of all.
Yeah,
I'm not
Aloysius
Kappa.
Scott Bolden.
Maybe. But he's got to bring those other voters, the 45 and older, the black voters, and he simply hasn't been able to demonstrate. Super Tuesday demonstrated he hasn't gotten there yet. That's why he's behind in delegates. On Biden, South Carolina helped. But let me tell you something. He's a national Democrat. They know him in those states he didn't campaign in, and they know him being the right hand of Barack Obama. The polling that Roland mentioned, he said it last night. Roland said this last night, and last night, Super Tuesday was a great example of this, that polls are snapshots in time. Because the majority of the voters, or at least 50% or more in a lot of those jurisdictions, right? When did they make up their mind to vote? 3 days.
Yeah.
There were no reliable polls during that 3-day period of time.
24 hours.
Exactly. And so these people saw South Carolina. He can win now. He just demonstrated he can win. We were always with him. We were looking for an alternative, and now he gave us one win, and then you had the majority whip, and now we're off and running. And ironically, I thought that it perhaps may have broken too late, but it broke just right. Because all you had to do was go pull the lever, right?
With
people in Texas
early
waited
voting.
5 hours. We had a piece on here, 5 hours, 5.5 hours.
Well,
waiting in Texas to vote.
there's one brother. Let me know if y'all have that photo.
MSNBC interviewed the guy.
Y'all, 7 hours. 7 hours before he actually turned to get in line and actually finally voting. And that's what you're dealing with.
And that's anti-Trump.
7.
That's why they waited. That's
And here's the photo here. Here's the brother right here, y'all. This brother right here, Hervis Rogers, 7 hours to vote. And let me go ahead and say this here, and I'm actually trying to talk to somebody who's there. A lot of people on social media talking about Republicans closing down voting booths, election locations in the South, which is true, 1,200 in the last several years. But Democrats control Harris County, Dallas County, Travis County. So here's what I think, and again, I'm personally calling some county officials in all 3 counties to say, what the hell happened last night with these long lines? Here's what happened. On elections, you look at past patterns. You say, okay, what were the primary numbers in 2018, 2016, 2012, 10, 8? So they said, okay, based upon these numbers, this is what turnout is going to be.
That's
Take
exactly right.
Virginia, for example. 762,000 or 782,000 people voted in Virginia in 2016.
Not
They
this
had
year.
the polling set up for the same number. 1.2 million voted last night. Folks, when 500,000 more people vote than came last time, your ass gonna have a long line. Now, let me be clear. I am not providing an excuse for anybody. But what I am trying to say is if you use some common sense, if I go to a restaurant and I'm normally serving 100 people and I've got 20 tables to service 100 people, and I look outside and there are 600 people standing outside, it's a good bet. It's gonna be or you're gonna run out of chicken, or you're gonna run out of salad. You gonna have to wait to get in. So Democrats in those counties had better be prepared, Joseph, in November for a massive turnout, because if you saw record-breaking South Carolina, 532,000 people voted in South Carolina, more than when Obama ran in 2008.
And that is with polls being cut. That's with registrations being more difficult. And to stretch your restaurant analogy a little further, not only are you going to run out of food, people know that what you're cooking is what they want to have. And that's what they want to order. And if I'm in the White House, I'm a little anxious about this. Because you
absolutely.
did everything you could to try to suppress turnout in these states, and yet you saw record turnout in Virginia. Record turnout in South Carolina. And Virginia is smashed it.
Absolutely.
Now,
of course, as a result of that, I told you about Senator Elizabeth Warren. She only hit the 15% threshold in 5 out of 15 states last night. She is examining her campaign. I don't see a path forward. Well, for New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, hit threshold 5 out of 15 states. Today, he said, I'm out, and endorsed Biden.
Now today, I want to say how grateful I am to everyone who has been part of our team. And I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for your support, your work, and your votes. And I'm just telling you, the American public should be saying thank you to you as well. You really made history. You really did. Yes, that's true. No campaign has ever accomplished as much as you did in such a short period of time. If you go back, we started at 1% in the polls. But yesterday, thanks to you, nearly 2 million Americans cast their votes for our campaign. This really is the best, most creative, most hard-working campaign team ever assembled. And I have to say, there is no doubt in my mind we would have beaten Donald Trump in November. And you know,
I always get a kick out of them people say, I'm sure we would have beat the Donald Trump in November. Well, you couldn't beat Biden and Sanders and Warren in March. Here's the thing. So Bloomberg endorses Joe Biden. Michael Bloomberg is a one-man political action committee. The reality is this. I think we saw with what took place with Super Tuesday how Biden is winning, and he wasn't even up significantly with ads and infrastructure. If I'm Michael Bloomberg, or if I'm on that team advising Michael Bloomberg, what I am saying is, Mike, we can run ads or whatever supporting Joe Biden, but we need to take $100 million and specifically target Black and Latino groups who know how to get the vote out. Let me just be as blunt as possible. Part of the problem, Wilmer, is that you have had these white-led organizations who do not know Black people, who do not know Latinos, who have no credibility going into those communities, overseeing these efforts and just sort of throwing a few dollars out at these groups. No, you got to be able to say, y'all know how to turn folks out. We're going to fund your efforts. And I can tell you, even though Black Voters Matter is a nonpartisan group, look, far more resources that they need. They're doing a hell of a job with what they're doing. You take DeWanna out of Alabama with Be Woke, same thing. There are a number of other people out there. Look, we're going to have to talk to Melanie Campbell in just a second, the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation. Bottom line is, Michael Bloomberg should absolutely say to Melanie's group, boom, you know what? Look, forget walking around trying to talk to everybody. 10 million, here you go. Because that a ground game is what is going to defeat Donald Trump.
Minister Farrakhan once said, never underestimate the blindness that attends arrogance. And what you're seeing with what you just laid out is you're asking white folks on the political scene to realize that there may be something they don't know. And that then you're asking them to put money behind what you're telling them that they don't know. And you're telling them you need to allow folks in the African American community to explain something to you that you don't know. And now what was interesting to me about a lot of Bloomberg commercials was they were targeted to the African American community. It was apparent to me that Bloomberg understood going in that he needed to be sure that the African American community was comfortable with him,
and with him
as he had to face the stop and frisk and the redlining issues and other issues that were not going to make him that appealing to the African American community. So it seems to me that Bloomberg he himself and those that were surrounding him did have an understanding of who some of his target audience needs to be. The question is, which you're getting to, are they willing to put money behind it and allow us to tell them what it is they need to do?
And Scott, what I'm going to need is, and I'm going to say this, and let me be real clear, y'all. I fundamentally believe that if you're an African American out there, and if you have $5 or $10 or $20 or $50, I believe that you also should be supporting these organizations where we are having Black-led get-out-the-vote efforts, where you have African Americans running organizations who are making those decisions on where resources go. But this is also where African Americans of means come in as well. Because let's just be clear, when you look at a Sheldon Adelson, casino magnate, he'll sit there and say, okay, I'm going to drop $200 million this year on the Republican various campaigns. Koch brothers will say, yeah, we're going to do well, actually one of them is now deceased, but we're going to do $400 million. They're put together their whole network of rich billionaires, rich white Republican billionaires. We're going to do $1 billion. This is also where you're going to need African Americans with money. Bob Johnson, Robert Smith, Oprah, other people, other individuals Sheila Johnson, other individuals who are worth $400 and $500 and $600 and $700 million, Michael Jordan, Jay-Z. I can go down the line to begin to say, oh yeah, here's $5 million, here's $10 million. Collectively, we're going to put together $100 million to have Black-led efforts. Otherwise, we're left in the same position of, frankly, going to ask white folks, can we?
And that hasn't worked. And I don't think it's their ignorance, because the DNC.
So I said arrogance.
It's arrogance, but but
I didn't say ignorance. I said arrogance.
No, I know what you said, but I thought you used later in your presentation something about them not knowing or educating them in some way, like Bloomberg. The DNC has practiced what Roland just described for decades, if you will, where Clinton did not put money in the Black community, had people that didn't look like us walking around handing out some crumbs, if you will. I asked this question on Twitter earlier today. What does Joe Biden and the DNC owe Black America? And what debt is owed to us? And what do we want? Because this is a broader concept.
What do we want? Everything.
Because we, Black American Democratic voters, and the majority whip, Jim Clyburn, saved the Democratic Party, saved Biden, and perhaps saved our ability to beat Donald Trump, which is the number one priority. How do we have that discussion about not only what we want, but what the Dems owe Black America? One of the things that has got to be on that list is investment in the Black press, investment in African American-based consultants and pollsters so they can fully participate in the economics of this general election and these primary elections which historically we have been blocked out, at least to a significant degree. It's called I call it the economics of politics. But we've got to demand that, package it, and sell that as one voice. And what is it that we want? Because we are certainly old right now.
But we go to these conventions, we go to these meetings, people with expertise in a lot of the areas that you're talking about, they appeal to those that are in charge of letting contracts, and all of that falls upon deaf ears.
Yeah.
And because when it comes down to distributing the funds and the money so that folks can get some contracts, for some reason, whether it's media, whether it's media,
pollsters,
whether it's
they use.
All of a sudden we're not good enough.
Well,
we haven't been there long enough.
And this is what I'm saying. The dynamic has changed now, but we got to exploit it now.
Hold on, stop. First of all, there's a difference between saying what are you demanding of a party. Again, the problem with that is you're asking a party to do this when right now there's still no nominee. What I am saying is, you look at Tom Steyer, the organization that he put together, the impact they played in 2018 in terms of being able to fund various initiatives, the amount of money he put in Andrew Gillen's race and others. What I'm saying is, what Democrats need wealthy donors who have the same mentality as Republican wealthy donors who say, we're not even worried about the party.
Right.
We have created our own infrastructure that can do this. What I am arguing is to those people who have created this other infrastructure, they need to be saying, we are absolutely going to be funding and targeting these black groups because we need to be able to fund them in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in North Carolina,
Ohio,
in Florida, in those places, in order to be able to be effective. So I'm not making a party argument. What I am saying is, because the party right now can't do jack. Because the party is like, you're still dealing with who's going to be the nominee. What I'm saying is, while they are fighting that, you have these independent interests who don't have to worry about the party, who should be thinking about it now, because historically what happens is the party waits until after the nominee, after the convention, after August. You not only left yourself a 2-month window. I'm saying it's March. Those resources, Joseph, must be spent now seeding the ground so it's fertile, because first you got to identify them. Then you got to talk to them. Then you got to register them. Then you got to have another system that gets them to the polls in November. It's a 4-pronged step.
That's exactly right. And you're talking about enough lead-up time where you can do that effectively by the time the polls open in November and you get people on board, because it is going to be crucial. Make no mistake. It's going to be crucial in those swing states. The black vote is going to be crucial in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, and on down the line.
You mean beyond the South?
Yeah,
beyond the South.
Absolutely. Because you got to look at Arizona. Okay, how are you going to go after Latinos to increase the turnout? See, part of the problem here, Wilmer, whenever you watch these cable news, they're talking about percentages. No. The issue is not percentages. It's how many and the percentage. I mean, you can say you turned out 96% of black women.
Of 10 people.
Right. So again, if you are on the Democratic side and you want Mark Kelly to become next United States Senator and beat Miss Sally, you've got to turn out more Latinos in Arizona. If you're talking about how are you going to get Hickenlooper in Colorado, you got to turn out your base voter. And that means stop trying to spend money, trying to go after suburban white women who are conservative. No, turn out the very people. You can spend fewer dollars with the person who's more likely to vote for you than to spend all this money with somebody who probably in the end is still not going to vote for you.
To your earlier point about those within our community of means putting money in, inside people versus outside people, what are their interests? And what you may find with a lot of those individuals that you're referencing is that they don't see the investment that you're talking about really to be in their interest. They're, in many instances, going along with the status quo because the status quo has served them and their interests quite well.
Actually, some have because first of all, the Black Economic Alliance, after in the last election, saw there needed to be, and I talked to them. They said there needed to be an actual entity that was taking where all these African Americans who are in corporate America and other places were giving money to individual candidates and campaigns. But then they said, no, wait, hold up. Right. We need to have an entity that's representing Black interests. So they created the Black Economic Alliance for that very reason. The problem before that was there was no entity set up. What I am saying is you have right now, whether it's them, whether it's grassroots organizations that are set up and established to do this very work that should be funded.
You're absolutely right.
Unfortunately, what happens historically has happened is they have withered on the vine because
they haven't been funded.
Because before they were waiting on campaign dollars.
Right.
What I'm saying is now what you have is the game has totally changed, and it actually changed really after Obama. Because when the amount of money that he raised, remember, he didn't take public money. So now the game has changed. So now what I'm saying is these external entities don't have to be bound by the same stuff. Hillary Clinton was sitting on $65 million. Black folks went to her trying to say, look, you got to put this money in. And they were like, we're not going to give you anything. But I know for a fact.
And then they lost and blamed us for losing.
On the Friday before the election, they were trying to figure out where they could throw money at any Black entity. And it was like, boom, the election is Tuesday. Had you done this a month or 2 months ago, it would have paid off. I'm saying we're in March. That's what we have to do. Final comment before I bring my next group.
Well, if I may, this private investment also works, this concept, those 4 steps, works from those very significant people who have lots of money, because a lot of the individuals or the organizations that you named, they're nonprofits. They may be, they may not, they're not Democratic or Republican, and so if you invest in them, you get a tax break. That's got to be more attractive than just spending political money, and you spend political money as well.
Absolutely.
They have to have a social consciousness, though. You see,
hence
new money,
my point about the interest.
But a social consciousness to do this, because it is a value decision that this president not be reelected, and that you want to invest in that.
Got it.
So you got the people, you got the candidates.
Final comment.
Basically, the thing that struck out to me when you're describing this is down ballot. I mean, you're talking about getting. You know, this is how you keep
focused on those races.
This is how you keep the Senate. This is how you keep the House. This is how you make gains in reversing voter discrimination and voter access rules.
In Kentucky.
Absolutely. All right, folks, got to go to a break and come back. We're going to talk about Black women and what is going to happen with them when it comes to this 2020 election. That's next. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. All right, so a lot of y'all are always asking me about some of the pocket squares that I wear. Now, Robert don't have one on. Now, I don't particularly like the white pocket squares. I don't like even the silk ones. And so I was reading GQ magazine a number of years ago, and I saw this guy who had this pocket square here, and it looks like a flower. This is called a shibori pocket square. This is how the Japanese manipulate the fabric to create this sort of flower effect. So I'm going to take it out and then place it in my hand so you see what it looks like. And I said, man, this is pretty cool. And so I tracked down, it took me a year to find a company that did it. And so they make these about 47 different colors. And so I love them because, again, as men, we don't have many accessories to wear, so we don't have many options. And so this is really a pretty cool pocket square. Now, what I love about this here is you saw when it's in the pocket, you know, it gives you that flower effect like that. But if I wanted to also, unlike other, because if I flip it and turn it over, it actually gives me a different type of texture. And so therefore it gives me a different look.
So there you go. So if you actually want to get one of these Shibori pocket squares, we have them in 47 different colors. All you got to do is go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. So it's RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. All you got to do is go to my website and you can actually get this. Now, for those of you who are members of our Bring the Funk fan club, there's a discount for you to get our pocket squares. That's why you also got to be a part of our Bring the Funk fan club. And so that's what we want you to do. And so it's pretty cool. So if you want to jazz your look up, you can do that. In addition, y'all see me with some of the feather pocket squares. My sister, who's a designer, she actually makes these. They're all custom made. So when you also go to the website, you can also order one of the customized feather pocket squares right there at RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. So please do so. And of course, that goes to support the show. And again, if you're a Bring the Funk fan club member, you get a discount. This is why you should join the fan club.
All right, y'all. Black women have proven to be one of the most powerful and influential voting blocs in the country. Yet still, black women face numerous challenges. A new report released this morning looks at those challenges. Joining me now to talk about that, the authors of the report, Melanie Campbell. She's president and CEO, National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, and convener of the Black Women's Roundtable, and Dr. Avis Jones-Weaver, Senior Public Policy Advisor for the Black Women's Roundtable. All right, so what does your report say?
Well, we started off this morning. Thank you, Roland. We started off this morning where we did a analysis of what just happened in South Carolina last night, and the fact that the black vote turned out the way it did, and it created a blue wave and shifted what all it was said about the pundits. And we were in South Carolina and Alabama for Selma Sunday, and so you felt the energy shifting on the ground. We were together in South Carolina, and so we know when you're talking about the shifting of the black vote and the increase, black women are the ones who are driving that vote, and so we know the importance of that vote, and we also know that there is no such thing as someone who is trying to get the Democratic nomination winning without the South, right? And winning the black vote to get there. And if you win the black vote, means that black women overperform by also not just turning out, but engaging in making sure that our significant others, our community, and our family turns out, because we influence our families to vote.
But Avis, what do they want? What are they saying that they want?
So this was really interesting. I took a look into some exit polls around that across all the different states. And we know from, we've been hearing about the large turnout among the black communities, but we have not talked a lot about what those voters wanted. So I specifically looked at this question about which issue mattered most to your vote. And what I found was a very interesting relationship. So, for example, among Biden voters, in every state, the majority of them said that their most important issue was race relations. Among Sanders voters, in every state, their least important issue was race relations. And the various different options that were on that survey were race relations, health care, climate change, income inequality. But we saw a huge divergence between the Obama, good Lord, the Biden voters, as well as the Bernie voters around these issues of race. It's very important, apparently, to Biden voters, but not important at all, comparatively speaking, to Sanders voters.
Melanie, and moving forward, how does this inform what they should be talking about? If you were Sanders, I've made the point that Sanders is going to have to recalibrate his message. He does not do well with African Americans 45 and over.
Right.
Bottom line is that is the heart of black female turnout. And he has not shown a penchant to recalibrate.
Right. I mean, just not showing up in Selma is an example of that. Every candidate that was still in the race, even one that got out of the race, Tom Steyer, showed up in Selma. The history of what that means, and you're running for president in a time where voting rights are under attack, when you had 4 days to show up. So that was part of what you were hearing on the ground in Alabama. Like, when you realize, oh, Senator Sanders didn't show up. So what does that say to black folks? So the other, I don't know. I'm just going to be frank. I don't know what he can do to shift that when it comes to. I think a lot of this is baked in now. I think he's been running. He ran 4 years ago. He had 4 years to get ready for this election. He had 4 years to build a relationship in the black community, to have black women feel, black men, as well as we always talk about, it's all of us. And the reality is, I don't see that. I also know that a lot of millennials that I've spoken to, who were Bernie burned in 2016, are not that now. For one, they had a lot more choices, but they also, he's not giving them the belief that what he's saying he can do. That's what I've been getting. And so I don't know that he can do anything.
But you do have Avis. Biden also has some work to do. Where he is weak is among 18 to 30.
Right.
He still has to figure out a message that resonates with them because, look, they are going to need as many votes as possible. Look, Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes than Trump did, but he still lost in those 3 critical states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, by 78,000 votes. And so Biden also has the work to do as well. Well, what does your data show about black women who are in that 1830, 1835 group?
Well, we have done surveys on that in the past, and we've definitely seen that they are not as attracted to Biden as they are to Bernie. But here's the challenge overall with the electorate, as we've seen in the primary season and many, many seasons before, that age demographic just does not show up at the polls to anywhere near the degree as older age demographics. Even after Bernie has said that he's going to have this big surge, he's going to inspire this big surge, we haven't seen any evidence of that. The surge that we've seen is the surge around voting against him. And so you're right, both candidates have work to do. No one should leave any votes on the table. But if I had to choose about which constituency is most critical in terms of turning the dial on the election, it's really maximizing the black vote specifically.
Melanie, when you announced the Unity campaign a couple weeks ago, you talked about the young folks who are involved with that. That still, bottom line is, somebody has to figure out how to get them to understand you have to vote your power. And I've had all kind of folks who've been tweeting me today, complaining about older voters. Y'all are hurting us in the future. And I'm going, I'm sorry. If you don't care enough about your future to show up and vote today,
yes,
I'm sorry. Nobody's going to pay attention to you.
You have to show up. And you have to show up. I've been voting since I turned 18, right? And so I have to vote when I don't want to vote. So it's also creating the culture of voting, and voting even when it's somebody that you may not have all the choices, because if you don't vote, you don't count. And so I think part of what we're attempting to do with the Unity campaign is have young people encourage other young people. Peer-to-peer does work. But at the end of the day, there's the largest growing vote are millennials, right? That's what everyone keeps saying, but you got to show up. And my thing is, it doesn't have to be Biden. It could be Sanders. It could be whoever. But if you don't show up, then whoever shows up. That's that's how the vote works. And so complaining about who showed up is a waste of time. And I'm the best advocate for young people's leadership. But at the same time, you have to keep it real. And keeping it real is if you don't show up, you had the opportunity to show up. Nothing was blocking you from showing up. Yes, we had voter suppression, don't get me wrong, but at the end, because that's still election protection needs. But there's also the need to show up and focus on who you want. Not, because you spend all your time talking about who you don't want, who you don't like. Okay, fine. Then organize yourselves around that. There was no reason that young people couldn't have shown up. He didn't inspire black youth. And I believe when the numbers ferret out. Look, in South Carolina, when I was on the ground, I was talking to millennials. They were voting for Biden. Yeah. I was surprised based on what had happened 4 years ago. And so just in having conversations in the Uber or a taxi, you're talking to young people who are like, this one sister, she talked to me all the way from North Charleston back to downtown Charleston. And she said, and she was giving me her reasons. I didn't ask her, wasn't getting in her business. She wanted to share when she found out what we were in town for. So that's the other part of it. And at our town hall, that you partnered with us on, a lot of young women were there. Yeah. People were focusing on the concerns. Who do they feel is going to beat this current president? Not that I'm advocating that. I'm not partisan. I'm just saying the facts. And also, who's going to address the issues? The poll that we did with Census is still real. It keeps showing up. Yeah. Race, the last 2 years, racism and hate crimes is the #1 issue for black people. Right?
Yeah.
And so if you're not addressing that, right, in a way that says you have solution, then we're not going to show up.
Or if you don't stop erasing
and
race.
Black folks are strategic about our vote.
Exactly.
And so the reality is, and the influence of someone like Jim Clyburn, to watch that play out in South Carolina, because I'm a political, I geek out on politics, right? Was really interesting to watch in that prayer breakfast that Reverend Sharpton hosted, to see the dynamics of politics play out. Who stayed? Who was there just to come in and come out? Who just ran down platitudes, what you thought black people wanted to hear, as opposed to, we can feel you. Are you real or are you just talking?
All right. Where can people go see the report?
They can go to our
ncbcp.org
website.
Say it again?
It's about to be
say
ncbcp.org website.
Okay.
To see the report.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
All right, folks. Going to a break. We'll be back at Roland Martin Unfiltered in a moment. Hey, fam. Want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? The blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, I talked about Elizabeth Warren making her decision whether she is going to stay in, drop out. Joseph, it's real simple. If you lose your home state of Massachusetts and you come in third place, if you come in fourth place in the state where you grew up, Oklahoma, and you come in fourth place with the state where you went to college, which is Texas, she went to the University of Houston. I'm sorry, there's no plausible reason for you to stay in. She's also sitting United States Senator. Now the question, though, is, who does she endorse?
That is exactly right. That's the only question. In fact, there's no path forward for her. I think she understands that as well. And the question is, does she go with Biden because she has some ties to the Obama administration and, as you mentioned, is a sitting United States Senator, or does she go with Bernie, who she aligns with more on policy issues regarding wealth and inequality? I mean, it's a very interesting choice, I think, is going to be, but I really have no insight about which way she's going to go. I mean, they both have very much appeal, but her voice is probably going to be courted quite a bit, and it probably is being courted quite a bit by both camps because it could have a potential impact.
It's a 50-50 piece, though, right? I mean, she's got the policy chops, she's got Bernie's progressiveness, but she also, in regard to some of her policies, she was at one point trying to take Biden and Buttigieg's voters from them. So I predict, this is always dangerous, I predict she waits. I think she gets out because there's no path forward, right? And the endorsement comes with perhaps a speaking engagement at the DNC in Milwaukee where she endorses then. Because there's really no upside for her because she's kind of in no man's land between Biden and Bernie, and it's fraught with peril.
But that said, she could probably negotiate for something. A position, Treasury
Inherent
Secretary.
in my statement was...
But here's a piece, though. Okay, and so I know some people out there, they're trying to make the argument that that she should stay in Wilmer, that she should keep making her arguments when it comes to the important issues. And look, on issues of race, she's been far stronger than everybody else and collect delegates. But I go back to the threshold. Last night, there were 15 states. She got, last night, out of those 15 states, she got 5 of those states. But here's the problem with 5 of those states. She got barely 15% in 3 of the 5. So it's hard for you to say, I'm going to stay in to collect delegates when you barely collect delegates, and now moving forward, you're going to be even more of an afterthought.
I think the reason that we're having this conversation, or part of the reason that we're having this conversation, goes back to part of what her problem has been throughout her campaign. Who is she and what does she stand for?
Yeah,
what
what's her space?
What lane does she fill? Because when she first came on the scene, she was trying to be more Bernie than Bernie. And then when she realized that that was fraught with difficulty, then she tried to modulate back and be a little more status quo, a little more mainstream. And that's when she started getting caught on, well, what do you mean when you start talking about your medical plan? What do you mean when you start talking, so
how much does it cost?
And how much does it cost? She started having problems with that because she was kind of caught in no woman's land. So I think that's a big reason why we're having this conversation now, because we don't really know what lane she's now gonna change into.
Why do you think she never caught on? Why do you think that
because
an elected official who's got the policy chops, she's clearly the smartest and most articulate, how come she never caught on?
Well, let me try and answer your question in the converse. One of the reasons why I think Bernie has made it to the point that he's made is because he's been consistent since he's been running.
Message.
You know what Bernie stands for, and there's not a mystery. And I don't say this as an endorsement of Bernie Sanders. I'm just trying to objectively answer your question. And so a part of, with Elizabeth Warren, she's tried to create a narrative for herself that her history doesn't necessarily support. And then she's vacillated between lanes, and it's been hard for people to understand, what are you about?
Actually, I don't think that's the case.
What do you think?
I think it's very simple. Elizabeth Warren ran at the wrong time. Elizabeth Warren was at her hottest in 2016. She fell for it's Hillary's turn. She didn't run. She was at her peak. What she did is, Sanders runs against Clinton. He now feels that space, that very progressive space, which she was in. He now goes from 16 to 20, has 4 years to build an infrastructure, to build this whole team. So then when he runs in 2020, he has Our Revolution. They're already there. He has the fundraising mechanism. All those things were in place. He easily transfers.
But he was there then, too. He was there in 16.
No. But he did not have an infrastructure.
That's right.
Didn't have it. No. Everybody, it had to be built. So had she run, I fundamentally believe, had Warren run in 16, she would have been stronger than on the progressive issues than Clinton. She would have been a more palatable alternative because she was connecting. She connected in a different way in 16. You also got to remember, that was an external group that had a draft Elizabeth Warren campaign. They had already raised money. They had signed up people. It was sitting there. But she waited. And what you did is, by waiting, you allowed Sanders to create this whole infrastructure, and so now you're running behind the 8 ball. Now, Joseph, when you run in 2020, you're not the hot progressive, you're now second. And so she was the second choice to a significant number of Bernie Sanders voters, but he was the first choice.
He was the original. He's the original. She's she's classic Coke or whatever. But the other problem is that she had a clear opportunity and a narrative, I think, that was kind of muddled in this situation. I mean, she did have.
During this campaign?
Well, during this campaign, if you look at her life story, I mean, high school dropout, came up poor, married at 18 or 16 at a very young age, children, trying to support herself. That is a narrative that people can get behind. But if you have Bernie Sanders filling the vacuum and taking up all the progressive space with a stronger organization, mind you, she caught fire for a while, but that organization really does matter.
And when you factor all of that in, the other difficulty, which she still had to deal with, was the erasure of campaign that existed. You had where NBC did a poll and you did a head-to-head, and she wasn't even included, and she's sitting there in the race after Iowa, New Hampshire. The other thing is this here, when you talk about decisions that you make, she hires these Obama and Clinton campaign operatives who tell her this unity message. Okay, You don't get to the unity message until you
after
end the
you got it
nomination.
Exactly.
You got to be
Exactly.
fighting in the whole deal.
Right.
And so then she then repositions herself.
What lane does she fill?
And then what happens is she does, and here's the other piece. She's a fierce debater. Nevada debate, killed it. New Hampshire debate, killed it. But it was too late. And that's what happened there. Speaking of too late, folks, we don't want many to be too late when it comes to the United States Census. Every 10 years, of course, the U.S. Constitution requires an accurate count of the nation's populations. Now, African Americans, Latinos, and others have been historically underrepresented in the count. Now, most people don't realize how important their participation is in this process. Joining us right now is Michael Cook, Sr. He is Chief of the Public Information Office at the U.S. Census Bureau. Michael, glad to have you. First and foremost, if you get to compare this census to previous years, how does it stack up in terms of the resources being provided to find people, target people, and get them out to be counted?
Thanks for having me, first of all. On a whole, I would say that compared to 2010, the 2020 census is new in the sense that we're asking people to respond not only online, by phone, but also by mail. And we have a three-prong approach where we know through the decades, it's about trusted voices and it's about our partners and taking that message to the people. And so I'm here today to let people know that back in 2010, when we conducted the 2010 census, there was an undercount of the black population of around 2%. The undercount for black males, 18 to 29, was 5.9%. For males across the board, 18 to 29, it was 1.2%. So we call it the differential undercount. So at the end of the day, it's about us spreading the word about the importance of responding to the census. It only happens every year that ends in a zero, every 10 years. But it's an impactful and important census because it counts everybody once, only once, and in the right place. And it's about power and it's about money. It's about representation in the seats of Congress, but also it's about that billions of dollars that flow down to the local level every year.
But how do you measure your undercount? Those are very specific percentages.
Hold on. Before you get to measuring, I want to go back to resources. How are you allocating the dollars? What are the entities that are out there? How are you reaching people? Are you reaching them through black radio, black TV, black digital? I mean, what's that apparatus? What's the, I don't know, that process. Before I get to how you count them, I want to know, what is your outreach plan?
We have a paid media campaign, which is actually greater than it was last decade when it comes to the black audience, the spend, if you will. We're reaching them through TV, digital as well.
And who's managing that?
Who's managing
Right,
it?
right. What's the entity managing that?
We have a group called Team Y&R.
Okay.
They are basically the contractor, and then we have multicultural agencies underneath them.
Who?
So who's the
multicultural agencies?
We have Carol H. Williams for the black audience. There are ads that are hitting the streets now that you will see that'll resonate with the black audience. We talk about the black audience. Sometimes people think that, you know, whether you're black or brown, you're monolithic. We have seen that people want to be reached on the channel that they're reached on. So we have an initiative, and we just got back from Atlanta last week, and working with V103, they're launching a Caribbean station because we know that all black people that might look like me are from different places. And so depending upon who you are and where you sit and the medium that you receive, you will get a message from us. You will be hit. Our paid media campaign will reach 99% of the population. On top of that, we have partnerships across the country, thousands of partners that are taking the message to people. We have a faith initiative. We have a statistics in schools initiative as well, knowing that in addition to the black males being undercounted, kids aged 0 to 5 have been historically undercounted since the first census back in 1790. So we want to make sure that we get people the word out that you need to count everybody. You're going to be invited to respond to the 2020 census on March 12th. Invitations start hitting people's mailboxes. When they hit your mailbox, you'll be asked in a letter to go online and respond online. If you have any questions, you can call a toll-free number and respond that way as well. But we ask for everybody to fill out the form, for everybody that lives in the household, for those that are related to you, for those that aren't related to you, they should be counted.
You want to talk about measurement now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so those are specific undercounts. And every 10 years, we know that there's undercounting. What goes into that measure of the undercount, And how do you improve on that, especially with people of color, or I'm sorry, black people?
We have a post-enumeration survey. The Census Bureau being a statistical agency, we conduct our work openly. And we welcome people to look at what we do and how we do it. So in working with advisory committees, people that we lean on that are from communities throughout the country, they have advised us that, hey, if you're going to touch the black or African American community, you need to touch them in a specific type of way. There's research that we did. We did back in 2018, it's called the Census Bureau's Attitudes and Motivators Study. We surveyed 50,000 households across the country, but we also did focus groups across the country to delve into what motivated or prevented somebody from responding to the census. And when you talk about the black or African American community, obviously it's about looking at the fact that historically, when the government is involved in asking me to do something, I'm questioning what are the motives and is it true what they're telling me? And so it's about fear, being fearful and not trusting us. And so that's when it comes to us working with trusted voices and distilling those myths and saying, look, this is in Article 1 of Section 2 of the Constitution. It has to happen every year that ends in 0. First and foremost, Title 13 of the U.S. Code is what we operate under. The Patriot Act, we stood up to that. The Supreme Court has been held up. The statistics, the information that we get from people, the personal identifiable information can't be shared with anybody. It won't. There's an oath that I take for life. Everybody else that works at the Census Bureau takes for life. Up to $250,000, 5 years in prison. So if someone asks to see something and they're not supposed to see it, they can't see it.
Wilmer.
We understand to a great degree representation in dollars, but could you be a little more specific for maybe some of those who are on a more grassroots level that really don't understand the practical applications of the census? And when you talk about dollars flowing to the community, how?
Those dollars that flow to the community are federal funds that are indicative of an accurate and complete count. So when you look at things like SNAP, when you look at Title I grants, when you look at the funding that reaches to the before and after care programs at schools, those are the types of things, roads, emergency, social services.
Fire stations.
Fire stations. We often say that, you know, when you talk about the census, and this year it coincides with the vote, and you say that, hey, it's our right to vote. We've earned our right to vote. If you go back and look at history, in 1790, people that looked like me weren't one whole count. They were 3/5 of a man. So when you look at the census, it's important for us to tell people that it's your right to be counted because the federal funds that have been allocated for people that look like you, they only get to you when you're counted. And it's once every 10 years. So it's very important.
Joseph, final question.
So you talked about how black males are undercounted traditionally. And also, to circle back, that's a very important message because I know some people who actually do fear that this is a government intrusion and that this is the reason why the government's trying to spy on us, et cetera. It's a very difficult message to crack. But I want to get your opinion about why these undercounts are happening, and if the message of the Trump administration trying to subvert the census and trying to reduce the amount of money that's been set aside for advertising, how do you first why did the undercounts happen, and second, is this enough to overcome what the administration is trying to do to trip up?
The lack of knowledge was the #1 indicator. When you think of 18 to 29 and you deduct 10 years from that.
What does that mean, though, lack of knowledge?
If I'm 18 or 29 and I'm being asked to do something, 10 years prior, I was 8 years old. 10 years prior, I was 19 years old. I wasn't participating in the census. Either my parents were, or I was away at college, or I just wasn't old enough. So they don't know that the census is actually just like, in order to drive, you go get a driver's license, and you can legally and lawfully above board drive. Conducting the census, participating in the census allows you to say that, hey, I have participated, and that representative represents me and or the funds that not necessarily will hit me, but will hit my loved ones for 10 years to come is important.
All right. Well, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot. And where can people get more information?
Thank you.
Where can they go?
2020census.gov. 2020census.gov, not only to be a partner, but to get information and also to sign up because we're hiring. $13 to $30 an hour, part-time jobs.
Cool.
Can I do
All
that
right.
in the evenings?
You can. Evenings
can't,
and
really.
evenings and weekends.
Roland, we need to go get one of those. We could do
Who's we?
Census together. You and me.
No.
We make a great
Not,
team.
not gonna happen.
People won't open their doors.
Not gonna
Yeah,
happen.
Roland would be there. They wouldn't.
Not gonna happen. Oh no, no. They'll open the doors because they know me.
Oh, really?
They can say who's that
They know
short. They
me
can say who's that
too.
short capper with you. All right, Michael, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Tall
All right,
lawyers,
folks. Yeah, right. Whatever.
Tall
Whatever. All right, folks. Today, a jury found that former PBS host Tavis Smiley violated the morals clause of his contract by having affairs with multiple women on his staff. Smiley sued PBS in 2018, alleging that the broadcaster had used a sham investigation as a pretext to cancel his show. PBS countersued, saying that Smiley's sexual conduct constituted a breach of their contract. The jury began deliberations on Monday and issued its verdict in favor of PBS this morning. The jury awarded PBS $1.5 million, but the total amount of damages have yet to be determined. That will be left up to the judge. Scott, you're an attorney. So in testimony, Tavis Smiley testified, saying that his company did not have any rules that barred employees from having relationships. PBS countered by saying, we contracted with you, and so you also had to abide by our rules. That's a huge hit after this 3-week trial.
And they're not done yet. They awarded $1.5 million for violating the morals clause, which is why most athletes and entertainers, if they get in a situation,
Well, not even athletes and entertainers. Look, I say news people.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're on television,
Right.
cable news, broadcast news. I mean,
the reason news people, athletes, entertainers, whomever, doesn't sue the parent about poor conduct is because there's usually a morals clause, whether it's a football team, baseball team, basketball team, that fundamentally, you know how broad morals are and how you interpret them and what have you? Well, they countersued for violation of the morals clause. Now he's got to pay them $1.5 million. Had he not sued them, right, then that's $1.5 million that PBS and their insurance carrier probably would not have gone after. It just would have been a clean break and let's just go our separate ways. So look for the appeal from Tavis Smiley 1, but look for what the additional damages that are being calculated by the D.C. jury now and see what that comes out to. Because if it's $5 million, $10 million, then Tavis is going to have to appeal, and there's got to be something in the record that's going to make the D.C. Court of Appeals think twice and send it back down. That's what he's hoping for.
Here's a statement from PBS. We were pleased with the jury's decision. PBS expects our producing partners to provide a workplace where people feel safe and are treated with dignity and respect. It was important for us to ensure that the courageous women who came forward were able to share their stories and that we continue to uphold the values and standards of our organization. Wilmer, there were about 6 women who testified via video about how they were treated or mistreated or sexually harassed. Some say passed over because they chose not to be engaged in relationships with him. And he had to admit on the stand that he did have intimate relationships with at least 2 of those women.
And none of them were able to provide video. None of them were able to provide email or any type of communication which supported their claim. I thought that was incredibly interesting. Scott.
But also, one woman who did accuse him of sexual harassment left with a $325,000 settlement.
Exactly.
Remember, these are his employees.
These are
and
his.
This contract was with PBS. So this is a really unique situation.
We're in a vastly different political space now, where and this was something that Chris Matthews talked about when he left MSNBC, was back in the day, you know, the things that I was saying and the things that I were doing, we could say and do, and now we can't say and do those things anymore, and they weren't right then, and they're not right, and they're not right now. Yeah. The $1.5 million, wasn't that PBS saying this is how much you've cost us for shows that were not delivered?
No, what happened was no.
That wasn't that? Okay.
No, and also he was suing. He was
breach of contract.
Right.
Okay.
And he was suing them, saying that they breached the contract by launching this investigation, taking the show off the air, leading him to lose sponsors, and things along those lines.
But I thought that they had a sum of money saying that there were 29 shows that they had paid for that they had not been able to deliver.
Not sure. That was one of the allegations.
Okay.
But the 1.5, you got to PBS had to substantiate the 1.5 for breach of contract, because you can breach a contract, but then what are my damages? The measure of damages may have had something.
Here's what it is.
Delivery.
Here's what it is. PBS, of course, this is a variety piece. You can go to my iPad. PBS accused Smiley of breaching contracts for 2015, 2016, and 2017, and sought to recoup payments from 2015 and 2016. Smiley had accused PBS of wrongfully withholding payments on the 2017 contract. He offered no comment after the ruling. Joseph, there's a statement that we all have heard and been told long before this whole Me Too movement, and that is you do not shit where you eat.
You know what?
And yes, I can. Yes, I can say that. Again, the show's called Roland Unfiltered, and this is my shit.
Oh, here we
so
go.
I can. And the phrase, I mean, look, I remember hearing that phrase, hell, when I was in high school. And that phrase was, don't get involved with people in the workplace.
Well, and now you have 1.5 million reasons why you should not get involved with people in the workplace, or more.
Yeah.
And clearly his behavior, even if alleged, even allegations to this extent could be harmful to him and to his network. Keep it above board. They're your employees. You should treat them with respect.
Yeah, but here's the piece, though. First of all, his show got canceled. There is no network. Second of all, when the allegations came out, the book deal that he had suspended, that went away. Then there was an announcement that he was going to launch these series of discussions and interviews on the Word Network, and he was going to launch a digital show. I was told by the folks at the Word Network, black women were like, oh, hell no, and then that deal went kaput. He no longer, of course, he had left the Tom Joyner Morning Show back in 2008, wasn't doing radio, and so I don't know necessarily what Tavis. I don't talk to Tavis. I don't know what he's doing. So I don't think there's anything media related that he's doing. I don't see him as he used to be on the speaking circuit. So all of that has dried up. A lot of people, Scott, were shocked that he would literally, remember he went on Good Morning America, did this whole big interview. They were shocked that he would actually file this lawsuit and would go after PBS. And then what ended up happening was the PBS investigation, the report they did, his attorneys released a part of that investigation publicly to help him. But guess what? That means that all of the stuff that they gathered now is in the public domain versus you don't sue, take the hit, chill for a year or two, and then come out in some other way.
This makes it harder for him to do that, but it also conjures up what we're told growing up too. When you go to kill the king, you kill him, because if you don't kill him, he's gonna slap you back. At least. And so here, the lawsuit calls PBS to investigate, and you had a lot of women who had been terminated, fired, passed over, weren't there anymore, so their lawyers went and investigated, his lawyers investigated, PBS came up with something, and the PBS said, well, wait a minute, we want our 1.5, and you breached the contract because you countersue to defend yourself. Were they really interested in that 1.5 million? If they lost it, fine, as long as they didn't have to pay Tavis anything. But now, this is a blessing of gold for them.
And in fact,
1.5 plus.
And in fact, what this also does is,
and his insurance carrier, by the way, his insurance carrier will have to pay that most likely, and they'll take that payment. They being PBS.
Well, but here's the deal, though. When this happened, look, you lose the show. You obviously lose. But Walmart was a sponsor. You lose the sponsor. And so you're upset because you get fired. Now, though, not only did you get fired, it's now been affirmed by a jury that you absolutely were in the wrong. Now the whole report is in the public record. Yeah. And all of that. So now it's just elevated by going after them and filing a lawsuit.
Yeah, you got to sit down sometimes.
Well,
you got to hold your
and sometimes it take the hit.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, the phrase is not. It's a good offense. You know, championships are won I screwed it up anyway. You know,
Good
it's
offense is
that's
good
right. It
defense.
doesn't go the best defense is a good offense.
Right.
That's what I was trying to get out. But even, you know, it smacks of a little bit of arrogance. I don't know. I mean, I don't know Tavis that well, but I have heard some things that this is
Indignation.
it's fairly in character and
Righteousness.
but we're also, I mean, to bring it back to the political for a minute, we're also seeing this with Justin Fairfax in Virginia, who somehow thinks that he was in the wrong, and he may have been. The allegations were unproven. But you don't attack Terry McAuliffe, you don't attack the party when you have this thing lingering over you.
Hold on. Here's why we're going to differ there. First and foremost, what you have is the Fairfax people have laid, and he's been on this show, we discussed it. The Fairfax people have laid out. The Fairfax people have laid out that literally moments after allegations come out, McCullough sends a tweet out saying he should resign. And they're saying, wow, that was quick.
Right.
Then the wife, LeVar Stoney, who was the mayor of Richmond,
Right.
they have a document where the wife of his wife was involved with her saying, helping get the word out. So you got a whole deal there. And the question that I kept asking on this show, and I've said it before, full disclosure, he's an alpha, so am I. He's a member of Beta Nu Boule, so am I. Scott's a member of the Boule as well. So we know Justin. But here's the piece. Justin Fairfax says there are 2 black DAs, one in Durham,
Massachusetts?
one in Durham, and one in Boston, who have said, if the women file a complaint, we will investigate. They haven't.
That has not happened.
They haven't. But the attorneys for the women keep arguing for an impeachment hearing. So you got to ask, so you have to, and this is not taking sides, you have to ask a very basic question.
Right. Based on what?
How would you be willing to testify in an impeachment hearing,
But not.
but you won't even file a complaint, and you have 2 black female DAs saying, I'm going to investigate. Here's my take on Justin. And again, I moderated the panel that took place Saturday in Richmond, his criminal justice summit. Here's the deal. What do I have to lose when I had a clean name, a clean record, got more votes than anybody else in history when I ran for lieutenant governor, and I'm being taken out? I'm going to fight back with all I got. So if I'm Justin, I'm doing the same thing. And what's interesting is you got radio hosts who are Democrat and Republican who are Virginia like, yo, somebody got a raw deal here.
But I guess my question is, what do you have to gain? Right?
Easy. You've already had folks sully your name. Folks call for you to resign, say you should quit, and remember, the Virginia governor can only serve 1 term.
That's right.
He was going to be the presumptive nominee to be the governor of Virginia.
Run for governor.
And if you're for Justin Fairfax, if I can be next governor of Virginia, I got bigger sights as well. So all of these things that I had planned, all of a sudden come crashing down. What don't I have to lose to swing back?
But I guess what I'm wondering is, if we're analogizing between him and Tavis Smiley, right? I mean, the theory in Tavis Smiley was, okay, something really did happen. Take the hit, lay low.
No. It's not that something really did happen. You admitted it happened.
You had the relationship.
Well, fine.
That's fine. It's different to say somebody alleged a sexual assault. I actually didn't do it. Over here, PBS said you broke your morals clause.
All right.
He goes, yeah, I did. Yeah. Then you go on Good Morning America and you admit, I did. Then you have a trial and on the testimony, yes, I did. It's a little hard to then say, I ain't break the clause.
Well, wait a minute, you left something out. A jury said, oh, he did.
So that's the difference. That's the difference between Tavis and Justin Fairfax.
And I guess what the analogy that I'm trying to make is, in Justin Fairfax's case, and perhaps this is better posed as a question, would it serve him better? Young guy, got a political future. Would it serve him better to do the low pro thing for a while and then come back?
Okay.
Because
he has been accused.
He has too much. He has way too much at stake on the political front
in years.
A few years. And on something
not
like
even political, personal. You've been accused of
Family.
Forget person.
Well, but no,
remember,
wait,
remember the law firm also.
Yeah. Oh, no, I
where he
understand.
was working cut ties with him.
I understand.
That's money.
I understand, but when you look at everything that you laid out in terms of his future, this is something that doesn't just go away.
No,
it does. He can't.
And you can't outrun it.
And silence in many instances is acquiescence. You can't just sit quietly, and because when you then decide to run for governor, it's going to rear its ugly head once again.
It'll never go away.
Oh, here's the piece.
It'll never go away.
Here is the problem when an accusation has been made and you can't resolve it. It's always there. Michael Jackson settles a case, $10 million or whatever it was. And from that point on,
he's a child molester.
Michael pedophile, Michael child molester. Yeah. Even though lawyer Johnny Cochran, those that you settle those laws, those complaints, you admit to nothing, all sorts of stuff like that, didn't matter. And it's still there. Michael Jackson's now dead. Documentary is done alleging Michael Jackson's a child molester. And so it's one of those things where if all I go back to Max Robinson, 1988. Max Robinson is dying of AIDS. He's speaking at Howard University, and he stands up in front of the alumni students and said, never ever lose your integrity or your credibility, because in the end, that's all you've got. I have said this before. I've said this before. If somebody accused me of beating a woman, if somebody accused me of sexual assault, and I know I ain't do it, bruh, we going to the mats. When that thing happened with Eddie Long and got accused by those dudes, this is exactly what I said. When they had their news conference, Roland would have been in the back like this here.
News conference.
And when they were done, I would have said, y'all stay seated. I would have walked up to that microphone and said, everything you just heard was a lie. I then would have said, ain't gonna be no private mediation, ain't gonna be no private discussions. We gonna live stream every conversation I have, because if I ain't do it, because here's what I know. It don't matter if you settle that. They gonna say for the rest of your life, you sexually molested those boys and had relationships.
They write about you. Whenever they
and it
write
don't
about
matter.
you.
So it's one of those deals where if all I got is my name, dog, we swinging.
Well, what if you did it?
Now, if I did, I'm sitting my ass down.
Quietly.
No, I'm just saying.
And you're going to pull out a pen.
What I'm saying,
and you're going to write a check.
But again, though, so to me, we got to say, what's the difference between a brother who's in prison, who for 27 years say, I did not commit this crime.
They got 3 of them in Baltimore.
And the other side over here is a brother who gets accused of sexual assault, who says, I did not do this, and now what you got is my word against yours, and the reality is there is no way to really adjudicate it except if the criminal complaint was filed, and that's the only question I have for her attorneys. How is it that the 2 DAs have said, if you file a complaint, because statute of limitations is not up. If you file a complaint, we'll investigate. Why haven't they filed a complaint, but they've said we'll testify in front of impeachment hearing?
And what he did,
I need that answer. I don't understand that.
What I find very interesting about this case also is that from the outset.
What case? Justin's case?
Yes.
Okay.
From the outset, he has said, yes, we had a relationship, but it was consensual. He has been consistent on that point since he has spoken on that point. And which makes me wonder, if an investigation were to take place, what would come out from that investigation?
Yeah, what would it show?
And so again, the whole point here is this here: when you're fighting for your name, I understand why you would sue. In the case here, Tavis Smiley files a lawsuit, but you had relationships. His argument is, well, my company did not outlaw that. Yeah, but you're doing business with another company, and the moment you do business with another company, their rules also come into play. And so that's just one of the things there. So, all right, folks, last item here that I need to get to is, oh my goodness. So Shaun King is trending on Twitter. because last night he actually posted a tweet where he was complaining about something that Rachel Maddow said. Well, Rachel Maddow took exception to what Shaun King tweeted by saying, no, I didn't. This is the headline right here under, it's in Mediaite, if I can pull it up. Rachel Maddow calls out, go to my iPad, Rachel Maddow calls out Sanders surrogate Shaun King for pushing fake news. I didn't report any such a thing. So this is what Shaun tweeted. Breaking, MSNBC and Maddow just reported that multiple senior officials within the Democratic Party are interfering with the primaries to stop Bernie Sanders. They reported that the party has asked Bloomberg to drop out so that Biden would have an easier time against Bernie. That's what he tweeted. Well, Scott, this is what Maddow responded with. What? No, I didn't report any such thing. Then Shaun then goes, yes, you absolutely did. Then he posts this video right here of her commenting. Now, I'm going to try to play the video. Can y'all hear it?
It's striking to hear Letterman say that the Bloomberg campaign is experiencing intense pressure from multiple sources inside the Democratic Party that he needs to quit. It's also...
So he posts that clip as his defense. Then he posts this other video saying, in this segment, you then followed up by commenting on his claim that senior officials within the party were calling on Bloomberg to drop out in the name of helping Biden and harming Bernie. Now here's what's strange here. Here's what's real strange. First, this is just very strange here. Sanders has been highly critical of Bloomberg for getting in the race. So if the Democrats are pressuring Bloomberg to get out of the race, why would you object? Bernie has been saying he shouldn't be in the race. Now, if you look at the political calculus, if you say that Bloomberg staying in the race actually hurts Biden to help Bernie, you should be arguing, no, but Mike, don't get out. So Shaun, you can't have both ways. You can't sit here and say, why are you saying that? And then, so I tweeted today, real simple. No, it's very simple. I said, where's the link to prove this, Shaun? Maddow says this is a lie. Either present the truth or delete the tweet. That's what I said. Well, y'all, Shaun King gets it a little personal, and he decides to block me on Twitter because I tweeted that. And look, I've known Shaun, and so y'all see it right here. And so pull it up. So here's the piece. And this is exactly what I said. That if you can't be accountable, first of all, you can't call yourself a journalist and allege something and you don't have proof to back it up. And I said that part of the problem here is that Shaun doesn't necessarily like being accountable. And I said, and you can't just get mad that somebody blocked you because they dared ask a simple question and you do a punk move like blocking them. And I said, feel free to retweet it. And then I sent Shaun a text saying exactly how I felt about, really, dude? That's how you roll? Now, what's interesting about this is when you begin to break this whole thing down, now all of a sudden you're trending, folks are talking about you, but it makes no sense. It makes no sense. See, here's what I need the Bernie people to do. Stop bitching and focus on running. And so all of a sudden, oh, they're all trying to come against Bernie. Here's the whole deal. If you get more Bernie votes than Joe, it don't matter what they do.
Done.
See, this ain't hard.
It's done.
If you get more votes, it don't matter. Now, you can be all mad about saying, oh, my goodness, they all targeting, but that's why you run. And see, I'm going to do this. I'm trying to find the tweet because I really want to show this because, here's the response from the sister who was the editor-in-chief of the North Star, who Shaun hired, highly touted. She is, of course, Dubois Fellow from Harvard. Y'all remember Dr. Keisha Blaine? This is her tweet. Go to my iPad, Henry. Shaun and the word accountability should never appear in the same sentence. So many people warned me about him, and I didn't listen. But I learned through experience, not rumors or innuendos, but real life experience with a liar and a fraud. blocking can erase facts. Now, here's the deal. I have absolutely nothing personal against Shaun King. I know him. He was on the Tom Joyner morning show. We've talked in the past. There's no animosity whatsoever. And look, and a bunch of people block me, and I block a bunch of people. But Shaun, this is weak. This is real weak when you start blocking people who only say, bruh, be accountable.
Show it to me.
It's simple as that. So I don't understand why he's in his feelings, but it's silly and it's trifling. And I said to him, Joseph, when he decided to get in the media, when you choose to step into this field of journalism, you can't make some mistakes because they're going to call you out on it. And that's how they challenge your credibility, when they can hit you on some stuff.
If your integrity is all you have as a politician or an individual, as a journalist, your integrity is all you've got. You rise and fall.
Let me tell you what else is silly about all this. Bernie Sanders is a Democratic socialist. He runs on the Democratic Party when he wants to run for president. When he's not running for president, he's not even a Democrat. He's an independent. So how can you be called to complain about the Democratic Party and being put upon and what have you, when you have no investment in the party other than a mechanism for running for president? I guess you could complain, but if you're a front runner and you got this revolution,
well, you also have to.
You're gonna man up and take the hits. And
Well,
keep
yeah, I was
moving.
going to say you also have to have a thicker skin than that. I mean, let's be honest.
Give me a break. That's politics.
Well, how much? But do we know? And I ask this because I honestly don't know. Yes, Shaun is a surrogate for Bernie, but is this really related?
Being a surrogate?
Exactly. Or is this just Shaun being Shaun?
Right.
Look, no, but here's the deal, though. First of all, if you're criticizing Rachel Maddow because something she said is tied to Bloomberg and Biden, and you're saying that they're all targeting Bernie, you're being a Bernie surrogate. That's what you're doing. But here's the other deal. I don't care if you're being a Bernie surrogate, or I don't care if you're in your capacity as North Star CEO, whatever. Truth is truth. And the bottom line the bottom line is to say, well, you said this when she even mentioned Bernie's name.
Yeah.
Okay, in the clip I played, she didn't mention Bernie's name.
I understand.
And it's like, dude, you're sitting there doing, but it's silly. And also, you're now maybe Shaun likes people dogging him being trending. Maybe he likes that, gets off to it. But my whole point is, it's like, dude, really? And people writing stories on it. And look, I didn't have to address it, but I chose to do so because I tweeted like, dude, you block somebody who simply is saying, bruh, either put the truth out or delete the tweet. And guess what? Numerous other people, black, white, whatever, saying that's simply not what she said. And here's the other piece, and this is my last comment on this. Shaun, this don't help you as a surrogate and your candidate. Because guess what? Your candidate is on Rachel Maddow tonight. So how in the hell does it help your candidate? And so this is also where you got to be a smart surrogate. You don't piss off certain people or go after them unless you're right.
Not Maddow.
No, anybody.
She got an hour.
If I, but the other deal though,
a big microphone.
But here's the deal, it don't matter.
Right.
If Roland Martin swings on Rachel Maddow, trust me, Roland will connect, and you will not be able to doubt what I said. Because, see, when I hit square in the solar plexus. You can't sit here and try to throw something at somebody and think you hit them. This is what Maddow did. Shaun threw something, she went. That's all that happened. So be a better surrogate.
Like George Bush with the shoe.
Right. Be a better surrogate and don't just do silly stuff like this. Because in tennis, it's called an unforced error and it makes no sense. All right, y'all, we got to go. Please support. First of all, we're not late. When you own the show, you can extend it to 2 hours. So you don't know nothing about that.
Oh,
so, folks, see what happens when you have Kappas on the show who know nothing.
Well, be respectful of your guests.
Because Scott, you could have left at any time.
I could.
You could have left at any time. Yeah.
Can I leave right
Scott,
now?
yes. We've done the show without you on many times.
You have.
In fact, y'all can go to a Wide Shot. If y'all want to support Roland Martin Filtered, join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support this show. Y'all dollars go to the Wide Shot. Y'all dollars made this. No, you gave under duress. Let's also be clear. Because you're supposed to give $10,000 to settle your bet. But then, of course, you
pulled the bet back.
Yeah, you did. Okay.
Because you were getting cute.
No.
Tell
women what happened.
Oh, I know what happened.
No. Scott, tell them what happened.
Gotta go. It's getting late.
I had an alpha shirt on, and Scott said, cover that up. Put a jacket on.
A suit jacket.
No, he said a jacket.
You know what I meant.
It was a quote, jacket.
Jacket.
We had another witness here. I said, Chelsea, go to my office, get my jacket.
I said,
she
great.
brought out my alpha jacket. I put it on.
I said, that's not what I
what
meant.
10 grand. He said, no, I ain't mean that. I mean a suit jacket. I said, but you said a jajacket.
I pulled the bet back before he went back.
No, he pulled it back because he went, shit, he got a jacket.
No, I didn't. He didn't have a suit jacket, though.
A suit jacket. So then he's like, okay, I give $1,000. Now, mind you,
I think Shaun King should settle this bet.
y'all support the Bring the Funk fan club by going to he had to get $1,000. First of all, but he'd been promising to get to the fan club for a year, and he had never done it. And so, frankly, he was late.
Are you bragging or complaining?
No, I'm just stating.
About the $1,000.
I'm stating. It should have been 10.
He's bragging.
It should have been 10.
Facts
we
are
should
facts.
negotiate then.
No.
What concessions are you going to make?
You lost
for
the
10
bet.
grand?
How about this here? Never bet at Alpha.
I need concessions.
Never bet against Black and Gold. You always lose.
We will
support the Bring the Funk fan club, y'all, by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, PayPal, Cash App, or Square as well. Every dollar you give goes to support this show. The live stream today we did with the Black Women's Roundtable, the release of their report. That's the case. Melanie's conference, the Black Women's Roundtable conference, starts this weekend. We will be live streaming every single day, tomorrow through Sunday. And that's why we do this here, folks, because guess what? These cable networks aren't covering Black issues. They are covering Black organizations. We amplify the voices and what they're doing by virtue of this platform. So we support all of you who give. Also support my man Leroy Campbell and his art. You see this great artwork, Remember the Vote, depicting multiple generations of Black folks voting. And so go follow him on Twitter and Instagram as well. I got to go. Time to go to the house. Joseph, Wilmer, Kappa, thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Aloysius, we appreciate that. Thank you so very much. Yes, absolutely. I got to go. Holla!